I want to get into some of the basics and fundamentals of starting a business because I know there's a lot of people who are listening to this, a lot of my audience, they will no doubt have the dream and aspirations of starting their own. So I guess first of all, before they've done anything, at the current point in time, they just have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
What would your recommendations be for them to
First
begin with?
recommendation is have 10 ideas.
Okay.
Rather than having an idea, have 10 ideas. So go through the process of called ideation. So ideation is where you are trying to come up with a good list of ideas and see if you can evaluate them against other ideas. So slow down for a minute and just sort of say, what other ideas might I have? And just go through that process of why do I like this one? What do I like about it? What do I not like about it? It just forces you to consider more options than just the first thing that hit you. All right. So, when songwriters want to write a song, they write 10 songs and then they pick the song that emerges as the best song. So start with more ideas. I had this mentor once who started multiple multi-billion-dollar businesses. I said, how do you start a multi-billion-dollar business? He says, you come up with 10 ideas for multiple multi-billion-dollar businesses and pick the best one. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. So start with multiple ideas. Keep a journal, a business journal, and just walk around and see if you can think about ideas. Like, what problem is there in the world? Like, what are people frustrated by? What are people trying to do that they're struggling to do? And see if you can start noticing things. Another great thing to do, which no one ever does, go talk to someone who owns a really big business and say, if you could buy a business, if I could wave a magic wand and you could buy like the business you wish you could buy, what do you wish you could buy? Like what's a piece of technology that you wish existed that doesn't exist? And what's a business that you'd happily spend 20 million buying?
What would that be for you?
What would I buy? I'd buy a really big list. So if there was a business that had like a massive list, a global list of small businesses, I'm actually having a meeting on Tuesday with a company that's got a 1.5 million list, and
of every company in the world?
Just an engaged audience, an engaged list.
Okay.
Email subscribers. I'd buy that. I'd buy any B2B services.
You're buying leads?
Yeah, or buying channel to market.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to buy a channel. So that I've got all these products and services and AI. I've got AI enabled SaaS businesses that scale. If I can put them down a 1.5 million list, then I'm going to hit critical mass real fast. I love B2B service businesses. So anything that is a really good, boring service business that serves entrepreneur community, I love those. And I believe that all of those businesses at the moment have intellectual property that could be scaled into software. So I look for, anything like that. I would like to buy anything that can become a B2B SaaS platform with AI plugged in. Because that is going to be massive in the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So in the next 5 years, there will be multi-billion-dollar funds that are just set up to buy B2B SaaS businesses that are AI enabled. And that's coming because we're right at the bottom of that trend and it's taking off super fast. So there'll be a land grab. In 3 years' time, they'll be buying those businesses for 10 to 20 times revenue.
Mm. Okay, so going back to the ideas.
Mm-hmm. So you come up with a bunch of ideas.
Yeah.
Yep. So what you then want to do is really cheap tests. Really cheap tests. There's a big concept. I'll try and think about it as fast as possible, but there's something called a bell curve. A bell curve is called a standard distribution of results, right? So if you take something like how much do doctors earn, there's going to be a bell curve. There'll be a few doctors who earn a lot and a few doctors who don't earn quite as much. And most doctors earn pretty much the clump. And it's a very narrow little bell curve.
It's like training volume as well. Like there's an optimal level of volume to achieve the best results.
There you
if
go.
there's not enough.
So those things are called standard distributions. They're bell curves. There's this other thing called a power curve, power law, right? It's also called the 80-20 or the 90-10. And that is where 90% of the results go to 10% of the players. And that's a power curve. And that means that there's a small chance of success, but if you do succeed, you succeed big. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not doctors, right? So that's entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are on a power law. They're on a power curve that you hear about the top 5, 10, or maybe 1% of them that earn massive amounts of money, but there's plenty of entrepreneurs who earn nothing. Mm-hmm. That's unlike doctors. There's very few doctors who earn nothing. So if you're on a bell curve, which most employees are, most people who work in a job, If you're on a bell curve, the goal is to stick it out and try and become marginally more successful year after year, right? Get further up the bell curve. Once you go onto a power curve, your job is to conduct fast and cheap experiments to see if you can strike it big. That's what you're trying to do. So what you need to do is find out fast if you're going to succeed or fail. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I've got a few ideas. I've got 10 ideas and I pick 3. I'm going to not launch a business. I want to launch a waiting list. Now, this is totally wrong. Most people would never do this. So I'm not going to launch the business at all. I'm just going to set up a waiting list, and the waiting list is going to essentially say, next year we're going to be launching this, or in the next few months we're going to be launching this. It's going to have these key features. It's for this type of person. If you're interested, join the waiting list, register your interest, and we will add you to the list of people who get all the early information as it becomes available. So let's.
You mentioned Elon Musk did that with Cybertruck.
Elon Musk did this with Cybertruck. They're only delivering Cybertrucks now. He did this 3 years ago, and he basically put one. It wasn't even a proper Cybertruck. I think it was like a normal Tesla Model Y or something made to look like a Cybertruck. So they put this one on stage, and they say, we're going to launch this cool thing called Cybertruck. And if you want to join the waiting list, join the waiting list. And it's $100 to join the waiting list. They had 1 million people join the waiting list. And it wasn't to collect the $100. It was so that they could go to JP Morgan and say, we've got 1 million people on the waiting list. We think at least 60, 70,000 people will actually go ahead and buy a truck. Can we borrow the money that we need in order to build the factory? Because why would anyone lend someone the money to build a factory for a product that's untested? But once you've got the waiting list, boom,